I'm CJ.
And I'm Lara.
And welcome to STEMtalk.
So we see headlines like this all the time in the newspapers where they proclaim that kids are getting dumber or lazier or things like that.
But kids are achieving great things all the time. And IQ scores in the United States have actually been going up for decades. So what's going on? Are we getting smarter? Are we getting dumber?
And is that even the right question to ask? Don't we as teachers want kids to gain mastery with skills instead of being perceived as smart or dumb?
And we've actually got a list. You probably heard a lot about 21st century skills. So after a lot of research, we've sort of derived our own list of 21st century skills.
And the main domain that we're going to focus on today is the domain of the individual, where we want to foster skills in kids such as initiative, flexibility, responsibility, and creative problem solving. And the big question we're seeking to answer is, what can we do as teachers to foster these skills?
So, if we want kids to take initiative, to be flexible and responsible and creative problem solvers, how do we do that as teachers? Well, we'd have to create situations in the classroom where kids have the chance, the opportunity to develop these skills.
Or we take the opportunities as they naturally present themselves when we see them, like Bonnie's mother does in Bonnie and the Box.
When I was around 7 months old, we were living in a small apartment in Galveston, Texas. My grandfather had come to visit, and as the adults were watching me play, I found a box. As babies do, I found this box very interesting, and it didn't take me long before I found myself in the box, stuck. Instead of trying to get out of the box, I did what most babies will do and started crying for someone to take me out. My grandfather noticed my predicament and was going to offer assistance and remove me from the box. My mom, however, got to me first, and instead of solving my problem by reaching in to pick me up, she knelt down next to the box and encouraged me to find my own way out. She would say, "You found your way into the box, Bonnie. You can find your way out." My grandfather watched as she steadily encouraged me to find my way out and says it was the moment he knew I was going to be an independent lady. It started with those simple words from my mother, teaching me at a young age that I could do it. Sometimes you just need a little encouragement to find your own way.
It's natural for us to want to help kids out. It's uncomfortable for us and for them to watch them struggle. But one of my favorite metaphors is about a seed and it struggling to become a plant. And that the seed is growing into a seedling, and right before it has its breakthrough, right before it breaks through the dirt, if it gives up right then it's just going to shrivel. Whereas if we would just step back and let it go through that toughest time, let it go through that breakthrough and become the plant it's supposed to be.
Now, it can feel like, what are the chances that the kid can solve the problem for themselves? You feel like if I let this go, they have like a 7% chance of solving the problem on their own, and that may be true. But think about it this way. If you step in at that point, they have a 0% chance. So just let them try.
Realize that letting go is not going to be easy, and it might take a little bit more time if this is their first time getting to do something on their own. The older kids are, the more they've been trained not to think for themselves. So if you're the first teacher to ever let them do so, it probably is going to take them a bit longer since they're being untrained.
And if you try to change your classroom all at once, it's going to be overwhelming. So you have to start small and work your way up. So that's the question at hand now, is what can teachers do in their classroom, small things that they can start with where kids can solve problems for themselves?
Please check out our Facebook page, check out what people answered to that question, and post your own answer to that question. Let's start a dialogue. So the journey to a fully student-centered classroom is not always easy, and there's of course going to be some missteps along the way. Let me share with you a personal story.
We're so busy teaching our kids to think, we don't have time to let them. Once upon a time, I taught a child how not to think. A mentor of mine had come to my class to model student-centered learning. I noticed a student of mine walk up to him and say, "I need a pencil." As the student had not made a request, but rather stated a fact, my mentor acknowledged the child's observation with a thoughtful, The learner seemed confused, and he repeated, "I need a pencil." My mentor attempted to prompt the student to remember that he had all of the resources he needed by saying, If I needed a pencil, I wonder where I might find one around this classroom. And he looked around the room in the direction of where the school supplies were kept. I was already on my journey to creating a student-centered class by that time, so I had already made supplies available to students so that they could access materials as needed. But unfortunately, I had forgotten about the little things. My student realized there was an easier way to obtain a pencil. He walked up to me and said, "I need a pencil." I picked up a pencil from the school supply area and I handed it to him, thereby reinforcing that he didn't need to solve his own problems when such an easy alternative was available.
So, giving a kid a pencil seems like a small thing. It's just a few seconds, and it's so much easier to just hand the kid a pencil than to struggle through helping the kid figure out how to get their own supplies. But let's do the math.
If you give a kid a pencil, like if you give a mouse a cookie, chances are you're giving other students pencils as well.
And if you're giving other kids pencils, you're probably also setting them up to expect other supplies. So now you're handing all the supplies to this student.
And if you're handing all different supplies to the student, then chances are you're handing all the supplies to all the students. So now the time is really adding up. And then schools take it even to the next level.
So the next level is, once the teacher takes responsibility for the supplies, now the teacher's taking responsibility for personal needs, like getting a drink of water or using the restroom.
And while those may seem like elementary examples, even middle and high school teachers take responsibility for cleaning up after kids. And if we're not the actual ones cleaning up, we're often the ones policing. And along with policing those behaviors comes complaining about them.
So this micromanagement of students sometimes bleeds over into the content areas of a classroom. For example, in a science classroom, sometimes the teacher is trying to lead the students step by step through every process in an investigation. The teacher's up there, okay, we're all going to pour 20 milliliters of liquid into a beaker now. Are you doing that? Okay, why did you move on? That's never going to work because we've got some kids who need more time to process and other kids who are ready to move on, and trying to get them all to move lockstep at the same time isn't going to work. It just makes more sense. It's more time efficient and a lot less frustrating if we give the kids a goal and parameters and just let them work at their own pace.
Agreed. A successful example of where I kind of implemented something similar was when I taught junior English and I was preparing kids for the AP writing exam. So students had to write a lot of essays, and it would have taken me a lot of time to grade all of those essays. So what I did was teach the students the difference between revisions and editing, and then I modeled for them how to do editing and revisions. And then I required that every paper came through 3 of their peers for editing and 3 of their peers for revisions. So by the time the papers got to me, they had seen 6 pairs of eyes. Yes, it did take me longer to ahead of time to do that modeling and train those kids how to revise and edit. But man, once those papers got to me, past those 6 pairs of eyes, the papers were better and had more perspective to them. Not only did it save me time, it made their work better.
So we started with that small example of handing the kid a pencil, and we saw how that led to greater things, which if that's the policy in your classroom where you're constantly solving problems for kids, then it is a problem, because how are the kids ever going to develop the skills of initiative and creative problem solving and taking responsibility if they never have the opportunity to develop those skills?
And as far as the time issue, it does take a little bit more time to invest up front and show and model these expectations and norms for how you expect them to run a student-centered classroom. But it saves you time in the long run. Once you've taught those skills of initiative, creative problem solving, and responsibility, it's going to save you so much time having to worry about that.
And it's not easy. You can't change your classroom overnight. Kids aren't used to it. Most of us teachers aren't used to it either. So you're going to have to start small. So maybe what you can do is make a list of things that you do for students in your classroom that in the future, you're going to stop doing for them and teach them how to do it for themselves. You could share that list with us.
Yeah, share it with us on Twitter. We'd love to see what's at least one thing that you've been doing for kids that you're ready to give up.
All right, so now we're going to take you through some specific examples of policies you can implement in your classroom to try to help kids start thinking for themselves.
So one of the simplest things you can do is to let kids access their own supplies and materials. So all of the general supplies for your classroom, as well as your content-specific supplies, can be out on the shelves. You can clearly mark them. Either for the older children, you can put a label that says balances, and they know that that's where the balances go. Or for the younger guys, you can put a sticker, red triangle, and they know that the boxes with the red triangle go back where the sticker the red triangle is on the shelf.
So the second one is start to dismantle that scaffolding that you've provided for students. And what we mean by that is, for example, if you always make the data table for kids, start taking the data table out, let them build their own data table. Or if your lab instructions are 20 instructions long with specifically what to do, start to pare that list down to maybe 6 more general, or maybe 2 more general instructions, and let the kids interpolate and figure out how to do some of those specific tasks.
Number 3 is turning statements into questions. In our first video, you're going to see how a teacher makes a statement to these students. Watch this.
Say this one first? No. You feel it first, right? Feel it first.
Now watch in this other video with a similar situation how the teacher, instead of making a statement, asks a question.
Let's try 6 grams.
Okay, now let me ask you a question. When we're testing this, what do we start with first? The biggest. Good. Go ahead and show me that one. Is that one enough?
No.
So what do you do?
Hit the other one.
Now hold on. That one wasn't enough. Should we take it out?
No.
Do you know what we should do next?
Hit like 10 or 5 grams in it.
So the next size is 10 grams. Should we try that one? Sure, try it.
Too heavy.
So what do we take out?
This.
Take out that one?
And number 4 is let kids make safe mistakes.
Every day, kids have problems solved for them, like when we prevent them from making safe mistakes. If that child would have been allowed to make a safe mistake and overpour and deal with the consequence of that mistake by having to mop up the excess and start over, her knowledge of accurate measurement and its importance would have been authentic and lasting.
So you might have tried all those strategies we just listed. I know I've tried them, and they don't always work the first time.
True, you may put out supplies, but kids still ask you for stuff.
And then you leave out a data table, and the kids struggle, and they can't produce anything.
Or you may have phrased things in the form of a question instead of as a directed statement, but students are giving you blank stares.
Or you let kids make those safe mistakes, and you end up cleaning up a huge mess.
It's very tempting when things get rough to go back to your old way of doing things.
But don't give up. Just stick with it. And I think maybe the most important thing you can do is to build up your own tolerance for a little bit of mess and a little bit of struggle so you can work through all the issues we've talked about.
Please share with us on Facebook or Twitter what you are attempting to let go of and let kids do or think about for themselves. We would love to hear your challenges and workarounds, your successes, and we'd love to tweet or post back to you.
So thanks for joining us, and see you next time.
See you next time.